Okay, so welcome back. As mentioned towards the end of last video, so we'll focus on urbanization in this particular video which we are going to cover. So urbanization, when we talk about urbanization, it's actually looking at cities, isn't it? That's what we say, urban areas. They are actually the cities. So there is no actually strict dividing line between the rural and the urban. It's urban. It's when we say urbanization, it is the study of the social, political, and economic relationship in cities. So that's what we are talking about. So when we talk about urban area, it's a geographically concentrated population of more than 1 lakhs, which is 100,000. Since I will use international, I'll not use lakhs and crores that much because so that's just let's use the international nomenclature, because lakhs and crores is only used in Indian context, India, Bangladesh, and maybe some other countries, but they don't use lakhs and crores. So 100,000 people. So it's a geographically constructed population of more than 100,000 people. We say that typically behaves like a city, regardless of what its designation might be. So we call them a city. So in terms of the definition, the sociologists they come up with some definition in 1965. Gideon Solzberg, he says there are 3 prerequisites for the development of a city. So if you want to develop a city, you need to have these 3 prerequisites. First of all, good environment. So you need fresh water with a favorable climate. Now that's becoming a problem today, like having a good quality water and good climate. We all see the problem that Delhi and other, and later on you will see that out of 10 worst urban areas in terms of pollution, quite a few of them actually is in India. I think 3 of them are in India. So second, we need advanced technology which will produce food surplus to support non-farmers, because urban areas no farming as such, although we are talking about urban farming today, where we can do farming on top of our terraces, on top of our buildings. We can do farming in some other areas. So that's in general, when we talk about urban area, we don't anticipate any farming happening. Farming happens in the rural area. And then a strong social organization to ensure social stabilization and a stable economy. So that's also like good social interaction, peace in the area, so that investment can be there and the jobs can be created and all that. So that's what typical urban area is defined in terms of their aspect. So as the world is undergoing largest wave of population growth in history right now, it's what we see is there is a process of transition from rural to more urban society. You saw that already, that from 10% to almost 60% is where we are today in terms of urbanization. So that is inevitable, that will happen. And other thing what is happening today is we are having this development happening only in concentrated areas. We are not getting this development happening uniform. So for example, we have Delhi, so everything is happening around Delhi, or everything is happening around Chennai, or in Pune, or Mumbai, or Hyderabad. So we need more of those. We need more of those cities around, more spread out cities, so that we can have less stress on our existing these mega cities that we have. More than half of the world population now lives in the cities. Urban area have higher incomes and consumption, so greater access to political power, higher rates of economic growth and per capita, and place a higher pressure on natural resources as well. So they do have higher demand for natural resources in that particular area. So if you look at the pace of urbanization, Africa and Asia, those are currently home to 90% of the world's rural population. 90% of the world's rural population is in Africa and Asia right now. They are urbanizing at a faster rate than any other region, and they will be 56 and 64% urban respectively by 2050. So Asia, where we are, it will be 64% urban by 2050. Africa will be 56% urban. So where it was actually by 2040 it was 40% urban, then it will become 54%, and in terms of Asia, which was 48%, now it is going to be 64% urban by 2050. Every country where USAID had a presence in expressing, USAID is the United States Agency for Industrial Development. So that's an organization which supports some of these poor countries for certain development activities. India also used to get USAID aid. I think we don't get it anymore because of our category has changed. We are not considered a poor country, we are considered more of an emerging economy. So like we are moving more as a middle income country. So close of half of the world's urban dwellers reside in relatively small settlements of less than 500,000 inhabitants. So they are the smaller settlement. The fastest growing urban agglomeration are medium sized cities or cities with less than 1 million inhabitants located in Asia and Africa. So that's a lot of countries are becoming a big urban area. So if you look at in terms of the global urban population growth propelled by cities, here urban areas less than 500,000, it's your the gray, the dark gray, the lighter like a from the middle shade of gray is your city between 500,000 and 1 million. Then very faint gray is your 1 to 1.1 to 5 million. Then we have like I would call it a peach color, like slightly pinkish peach, that's your 5 to 10 million. And the red color that you see on the screen is your mega cities of 10 millions or more. That's called mega cities. 10 millions in, again I'll just put it in Indian, although it's more than 1 crore, like 1 million is 10 lakhs. So just to give you that aspect. So if you can look at from 1990 until 2030, look at the numbers. Of course, we are having a smaller cities are also going up, which is more than I think it will be more than 2,000 smaller cities by 2030. But then the bigger cities are also going up, like mega cities. In 1990, it was 10 mega cities in the world. It became nearly tripled in 2014, 28 mega cities in the world, and that is going in next 10 years. We'll have 41 mega cities in the world. So that is lots of resources, and you engineers and you scientists and you are as a management or consultant or data analytics or whatever job you will do, you have to serve these cities, isn't it? Ultimately, what all the product and services that you will be developed, it is for the people, and those people will be living in urban and rural areas. Urban areas more demand. So we are going to see a boom in urban areas. So we need to design our products and services so that it's more useful for having a sustainable living. We have to make those cities livable. That there is a concept called livable cities. So those things has to come up over there. So growth rates are higher in very high class and middle class urban areas. So you can see the city growth rate, urban vulnerability classes, like where we see the higher vulnerability. So here the dark color is mega cities, then you have big cities and medium cities and the smaller cities. As you can see in city growth rate, we are seeing we saw that in the earlier as well. So we are average urban population growth rate is happening in all the different city types, but also higher in higher class cities and middle class urban centers where we see more growth rate. US, China and India have the highest urban agglomeration right now. It's a population in urban agglomeration. As you can hear, darker the shade, we are moving from light color to blue and then darker blue and then finally the green. So where you see the greenish area where population in urban agglomeration is going up. So India, China, US, those are the areas which is the most, which is greater than 200 million people in terms of number of people living in urban city of more than 1 million people. So that's what we are looking at. If you look at the different countries, Tokyo is the world's largest city, where in terms of agglomeration of 38 million inhabitants, followed by Jakarta, which is 32 million. Delhi has 27 million. So that's the Delhi is at number 3, which is actually a Delhi, UP as well as Haryana. That's the NCR, which is taken over there. So if you look at this list, we have Delhi at number 3, and then we have Mumbai there, and then we also have Kolkata, and then Kolkata I think probably includes Howrah area and all that too. So Kolkata is looking at 15 million, that's based on 2018 estimates, and that's the numbers. So these three, so Delhi, Mumbai and Kolkata does show up in this list of I think around 10, 12. Then we have Jakarta, then Manila, Seoul and Shanghai. So then we have New York, Beijing, Sao Paulo, Mexico City, Cairo, Bangkok, Buenos Aires, Los Angeles, LA and all that. So if you look at the urbanization around the world, if you look at the new urban world, where here the predominantly the red color means predominantly urban, 75% or over, and the greenish bluish color is predominantly rural, 25 to 49% urban. India and China is still in that 29% and 42% urban. So this is the data based out from it is I think it's a 2010 data, so it's slightly older data. So but as you can see, this is the I wanted to show you this so that you can just see the different ways of illustration people do. When you make your graphs and tables, you can make like this shows the numbers, like bigger the bubble, more is the percentage, and different colors also. Red one is predominantly urban, 75% or more. So US is predominantly urban, Mexico is also predominantly urban, UK, Germany, France, Spain, they are predominantly urban. Then we have Russia and all that, most of the other European countries, which is 50 to 74%. So the lowest is your where you cities with 10 million people, like predominantly rural is the green ones, some African countries and some of these Asian countries there as well. And then the dark that circles that you see around the globe, that's actually the cities with more than 10 million people. So we have Mumbai, Delhi and Kolkata, Karachi, Shanghai, Beijing and all that, Moscow. So some of those cities which is out there, which population is going up, is not included here that much. So urbanization in India, if you look at due to this country's adoption of mixed economy post independence, urbanization has rapidly increased. Population residing in urban areas according to 1901 census was around 11.4%, which went up to 29% by 2001, so and 34% in 2017 according to the World Bank data. By 2030, we expect that to be close to 41%. So that's how we are looking at in terms of urban population in India. So there another picture, that urban shift based on census 2011 data, howindialives.com. So here you can see that this is your the entire India divided into different states as well as different districts within the states. So we have certain areas which is below 5% in terms of urban, and then as you go into darker color, it is and the highest one is above 20%, and that you see in terms of different districts in the country. Hotspots where the people are moving in India also, you see that people are moving from Bihar, Bengal, Odisha and some like Rajasthan and other countries there, where you see the darker colors. So where we see that people are migrating out and going to other areas, lighter colors where the migration is less and people are the job is there. But the world's largest pool of migrant workers emerged from UP and Western Bihar. So that's where UP and Bihar is where a lot of migration happens. Roughly 1/6 of India's household has a member who has stepped out of their home in order to work related immigration. You see that migration also in your south, especially Kerala, but that is Gulf bound migration. In Gujarat, you will see migration happening mostly to countries like US, Australia, New Zealand and all those. A lot of migration happens from Gujarat to those countries, from Punjab to Canada. Those are happening, but within country we see that migrant workers from UP and Western Bihar are moving to different areas in the country for work. Northeast, they move to Delhi, they move to Bangalore. Coastal Odisha, they go to Gujarat and other major cities. There are some seasonal migration as well for the construction sites, brickworks and all that. So there is a lot of movement of people does happen. So what is the benefit? Like if you look at urban areas of global economic platform, they produce, innovate, trade, significant opportunity for formal and informal employment. They do help millions escape poverty through increased productivity and employment opportunities. So it's urban areas does provide a lot of opportunities too. That's how people move out there, and then it has helped India to come out of poverty, have better education, better health care. You can have large scale public investment, access to improved infrastructure and all that. Economic prospect is there. Urban areas drive innovation, contribute to national and regional development, and you can we can work towards social inclusion. All those different like caste and different aspect, that kind of goes a little bit down when you go to urban areas. Alleviation, that helps people can make better money, that makes people to get some more like they can come out of poverty much faster. There are challenges if you don't there is such a thing as sustainable urbanization. UN Habitat says there is a lot of challenge. We have to understand those challenges. This is inability to cope with demand, disparity between rich and poor, the slum areas and all, insecurity and social unrest. If you diversion of resources, those aspect is there. So in terms of sustainable urbanization, it's actually a concept where it is said that there is an urgent priority as cities are growing faster than the ability of national and local governments to plan, build and manage those cities. So poorly managed urban areas, they become very chaotic, and we see that in the country itself. The cities which have been planned well, they like you look at Bhubaneswar, you look at Chandigarh, they are planned cities. But then we have several cities which grew over like thousands, like hundreds of years, and they are become a lot of slum areas, a lot of issues associated with that. So their chaotic urban development, poorly managed urban development, they undermine economic growth and business opportunities, threaten security through increased crime, violence and extremism. Well-managed cities can become a powerful engine of economic opportunity, innovation and progress. So that's so the proper management of cities is also very, very important. And you need to have sustainable urbanization if you really want to have enabling business investment, economic growth and employment opportunity. We have to have a stability. We should not have violence, crime and extremism, some sort of social unrest or the others. More the social unrest, more the problem. People will not invest. So those issues are there. Resilience to respond and adapt to disasters. If you have a disaster, economic shock, extreme weather conditions, improve global health, reduce the spread of infectious disease like we have right now, COVID-19, improve the domestic resource, physical reliance, government accountability, women's participation, women's empowerment, access to service, reduce the gender-based violence, improve agricultural development and food security. We have to bring food from the nearby rural areas to the urban sector. So we have to have better rural-urban linkages as well. So people can come going back and forth. So there are a lot of, if you can Google this concept of sustainable urbanization, you will find different things out there which people kind of talk about in terms of having a sustainable urbanization. So there are, if you try to divide it into different categories, infrastructure, technology, sustainability, climate change, that's where we are kind of we talk most of the aspect here. Infrastructure and technology, you talk about that in your class, other courses as well. Finance and investment, that's again some courses are given to you, but then you learn it as if you want to learn, you may want to go for a master's in business and all that later on. So it has to be a competitive city, it has to be a resilient city, technological CV and inclusive city as well. So that's together it is sustainable. Like you have economics, social as well as environmental. Then you can break it down into different categories: quality of living report, livability ranking, better life index, healthy city indicators. So all those different green city index and all that, you can do those break up further. Mega cities are the ones which is access of 10 million. 10 million is 1 crore. So there are several 30 mega cities in 2014. Asia has 17 out of them. Europe has 5. Moscow, Istanbul, London, in Rhine in Germany, then Paris. So Rhine in Germany and Paris. So those are your 5 mega cities over there. In Asia, and if you look at in India, we have Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, these 3, then Karachi, then Tehran, Dhaka, Bangkok, Manila, Jakarta, Seoul, Osaka, Tokyo, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Tianjin, Shenzhen, and Beijing. So these are all mega cities out there. North America has 3, New York City, LA, and Mexico City, which is in these 3 are mega cities. Then in South America, there are also 3, Rio, Sao Paulo, and Buenos Aires. So in Africa, we have Cairo and Lagos. So those are, Lagos is 24 million now. So that's more than 24 million people. So that's, so this is your mega cities, which again has a lot of demand for resources. So world mega cities are set for major growth. As you can see, the population growth rate will happen by 2025. New Delhi will be 33 million. So 43% more people. The biggest city is still will probably be Tokyo at 37 million. And after Tokyo, the next will become Delhi, I think 33 million. So second will become Delhi in terms of population. And that's what I see on the screen right now. Yep. So as you can see, you will have all these cities are getting bigger and bigger. So mega cities, as you said, more than 10 million people. Those are like if you look at the country wise, they have certain number of mega cities, but then there are a lot of cities which is between 100,000 to 1 million. So that numbers are also kind of going up in recent times. So challenges of mega cities is high income inequality and slum area, unemployment. So you have growth of population, growth of employment has less, growth of population is much higher, traffic regulations, sanitation problems, social and health issues. So if you look at the most populated mega cities as per WHO PM10 data, particulate matter 10, Delhi, Mumbai, both are in that top 10. The 2 out of 10 is from India. And then Dhaka is there, Cairo is there, Beijing, Shanghai, Istanbul, Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires. So they are at the bottom. But if you look at the Delhi is the most polluted mega city in the world. So we cannot have that. We need to kind of do it much better. There are some compact cities, limited land area with high population density. They are growing vertically, like Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo. Most people get around by walking, biking, using mass transit. There are dispersed cities, a lot of land is available. So cities in Australia, Canada, China, India and US, those are mostly dispersed cities. So it is a distribution of activities in the urban area that's called a spatial pattern. There are 3 different types of a spatial pattern. It could be concentric zone model, also known as Burgess model or bullseye models. It could be a sector zone model, could be a multiple nuclei model as well. And we'll talk about these in more detail in the class. Concentric zone model is a good example is Chicago. Does not work with modern cities those. It assumes flat land, assumes a constant land escape. So in the middle you have the central CBD, central business district, then you have a mixed use area, then you have a low residential, and then you have a higher class residential, then you have a commuter zone. So sector zone model is its cities that tend to grow wedge shaped patterns emanating from CBD. So CBD is your red circle in the middle, and then the city is growing in terms of factories, industries, low class residential, middle class residential, high class residential and all that. So drawback is physical features may restrict. Theory 2 lacks the idea based on the land topography. Multiple nuclear is you have a CBD, but then you also have you make like a divide, like a decentralized approach here. So LA is fairly close to this pattern. So you have a multiple small CBDs. So you don't have one big CBD, you have multiple small central business district. So here the land is not flat in all area, even distribution of resources, even distribution of people, even transportation costs. So that's what it's talk about. Urban sprawl is where things are not properly planned, low density, long distance between homes. End result is the spreading of the city over its suburbs, more and more rural lands. You're trying to encroach on the rural land. That's your based on the demographic, economic, geography, social and technological factors, you see that people kind of going out of the city and taking over the nearby rural areas. Number of as the people grow in the beyond capacity, the local community is spread further and further. increased affluence, attractive land and housing price, desire for larger homes with more amenities such as yards, swimming pools, storage space, lower noise, better air quality, privacy. They are basically, they makes a lot of suburbs, that's called suburbs. Sprawl is also policy driven, maximum density restriction, a specific zoning, tax system. Then you look at the social cost of misaligned with the social cost of low density development. So those all kind of get into look into urban sprawl. Urban sprawl does affect land and biodiversity. You are getting making more and more urban areas, affect the water also. Like you using all this increased use of surface water. You are doing a lot of commuting, and also have the economic effect, because downtown business goes down, people starts having separate shopping areas. That's what happened in Toronto actually. If you look at the Toronto big market in the middle of this areas has gone down. Now we have several smaller markets all around these urban sprawl area. They grow so outward, separate urban areas may emerge. So for example, and they form a megapolis. For example, remaining open space between Boston, Massachusetts, Washington DC, and rapidly urbanizing, and they are becoming like a megapolis over there. So how you regulate? You can regulate through the building permit, urban growth boundaries. You do the transfer of development rights from the rural to urban setting, can encourage the containment of growth. Infrastructure based policies has to be there, targeted public investment, capital improvement, phasing of development, land acquisition, educational outreach programs, and all that. So we have to try to have all these, like we need to have green belt, we need to have satellite towns. So some cities provide open space and control by providing a green belt. We can have a satellite town from where you can travel to the urban center and work and go back. So highway or rail system can be used for that. So those kind of growth rate has to be done. Another popular approach is preserve the open space outside cities to set up urban growth boundary. So which new development is not allowed beyond that. Portland, Oregon has tried to do it. So in recent years, builders have increasingly used a new pattern known as cluster development, like high density housing units, concentrated a portion of parcels with the rest of the land used for commonly shared options. So you have you do those cluster development, like different clusters, you have open areas and all that. So that is also happening as well. Now, when we talk about this smart growth, is a growth of urban planning in relatively compact centers. So those of you who are in architecture discipline, you will learn about it in more detail, where you look at the smart growth is mixed land uses, take advantage of compact building design, create a range of housing opportunities, create walkable, foster distinctive communities, provide a variety of transportation choice, encourage community and stakeholder collaborations and all that. So smart growth, it's a limit and put some regulation. You do the zoning of different areas, you do the planning very well, put some taxes there, get some tax breaks, put some protection in terms of open space and all that. And that kind of leads to the concept of eco-city as well. It's ecologically healthy and human settlement. So it's a self-sustaining resilient structure which function of natural ecosystem. So the ultimate goal of these is to eliminate all carbon waste and produce energy entirely through renewable resources, incorporate the environment into the city, reduce poverty, organize city to have higher population density and therefore higher efficiency and all that. So eco-city is you are centralizing the population within a given area, use renewable energy as much as possible, use energy and matter efficiently, recycle, reuse, compost, increase the biodiversity. So there are some eco-cities in the world like Copenhagen, Malmo in Sweden, Songdo in South Korea, Arrowville in India, they are Masdar, Johannesburg. So these are eco village in US. So these are all where they are trying to develop some of these eco cities. And one of the important aspect is also to look at the sustainable mobility, like how to move people around. So that's vehicle and transportation and all that associated with those. We'll talk about this in more detail in the class as well. So we can have the reverse traffic pyramid. So we less flying, more and then less car, then car sharing, taxi, public transport, bicycles, cycling, walking. So that's what we want to promote. So takeaway, there was a World Bank report. They say that by 2030, passenger traffic will exceed by 70%. So number of vehicles will double by 2050. In countries like India, China, billions of people will have higher lifestyle expectation and new mobility aspirations. So we need to develop more of equitable access, secure and safe transport, efficient transport, pollution and climate responsive transport. And only answer to all these is kind of what you saw in the 2 slides before. We need to rely a lot on good quality public transport, on mostly like subways and all that, with lower consumption of energy and lower consumption of fossil fuel energy. So as you can see, the carbon emissions, car, gasoline, diesel, hybrid car, ferries, autobus, motorbike, as you go down, you see that more and more carbon emissions coming out. If you go for bike, e-bus, tram, buses, train, those are much lower carbon emissions that you see over there. And we have to link it all to the social development, like sustainable development goals. So in terms of the sustainable development SDGs, in terms of urbanization. So those these are the different SDGs, as you can see on this graph, on this particular image, and we'll talk about those as well in the class in terms of universal access, green mobility, safety, and all that. Okay, so there are these are some of these principles for successful urban mobility planning, cooperative, involved citizens. So these are all assure quality, monitoring, evaluation, develop all transport mode, long-term vision has to be there. Then you look at basically all these things are there. Self-driven car is also there, public transport is also there, people are biking, people are walking, so everything is included. So in terms you have economy, environment, and social. That's what we always talk about. And in the middle is your sustainable part. So sustainable planning, it again, it's you need to come up with a plan to how to come up with this urban mobility. For the civil and architecture people, this is very important. You will talk about that more in detail in your class later on as well. But others, you will use these cities, so you will be kind of being a consumer as well. So we look at different aspects, which we'll talk about again in detail in class. We'll try to analyze the problem, opportunities, and then look at the different aspects to come up with this sustainable design. So you look at your resource, you look at the demand side, you look at the impact side, and then overall you see that how sustainable things we can come up with. So in terms of public transport is one area, as we said earlier, we need to improve upon that. So some cities which are doing really good, none of Indian cities are there. Hong Kong, Singapore, Greater Paris, Moscow, Seoul, Madrid, New York. So if you can see the top 10 cities listed here, here we use public transport efficiency in terms of the rail and in safety ranking, affordability ranking, all those things are given. So, but unfortunately, overall ranking is also given. None of the Indian cities show up there. So that's, I think this video becomes slightly longer than usual what we try to do, but I just wanted to cover these topics so that we can finish this concept. Again, these videos are for you to just go over to get yourself familiarized with what will be covered in the course. As in the class, we discuss these things in more detail. So it does not replace the class, but it's a supplement to your class. So I hope it is useful, and I'll see you in the class discussing this again. And I will also make next set of videos which will be on different topics as per the course requirement. Thank you.